Flores is blown open. It looks like there's a scandal here occurring at multiple levels. Number one, the whole we got to check the box scandal, and number two, hey, let's throw some games and let's make sure that when we throw games to get better draft picks, that it's always black coaches who are throwing the games. Am I understanding at least the tip of this iceberg?
Well, I do believe that there is been an inherent kind of discrimination against African American coaches in the NFL for decades. And the fact that there's only one coach, African American, in the 32-team league, where the league is 70% black, Flores has an issue, and many people have an issue with that, considering that they
are qualified candidates who can run their teams just as good as white males can.
Yeah.
So what Flores is talking about is basically he wants to call out the NFL for its discrimination practices. And he basically was told to interview for a job with the New York Giants when they had already decided on who they were going to hire, because they wanted to check a box for the Rooney Rule, which mandates that every NFL team interview in person a minority candidate for a coaching position. If they don't, they'll be fined or penalized by the NFL. The Giants wanted to avoid that penalty, so wanted to bring Flores in on a Thursday when they had already made the decision on a Monday for whom to hire.
Right. Yeah, on Friday, presumably. So I think a lot of people don't understand the whole draft pick thing, too. This was, I've known for years, in fact, have pointed out that, whichever team is kind of at the bottom at the end of the year gets the first draft picks and therefore presumably the best draft picks the next year. It's kind of like, progressive taxation. It's giving people a chance when they're down. And please correct me if I have any of that wrong. I don't much follow football, but that's my understanding. But what I didn't know is that the owners were actually instructing their managers to throw games to make the team really. If you can make the team really bad for 1 year or 2 years, you can accumulate a whole bunch of really great draft picks and have a 3 or 4 good year run. Am I getting that right?
Yes. Because if you look at any sport with the draft system, the worst team gets a chance to pick the best
players who are available to draft coming out of college. So if you're the worst team in the NFL, you get the number 1 pick. So Flores is accusing the owner of the Dolphins of offering him $100,000 per game to lose so they could get a favorable pick in the 2020 draft, because that way you get a franchise caliber player, someone, maybe not on the Tom Brady level, but someone on a level who can carry your franchise for many years. You can win, maybe have a chance at the Super Bowl, playoff appearances. It makes you a lot more money in the long run with a franchise player. If you win more, and the worse pick you get. So Flores is accusing the owner, Stephen Ross, of essentially saying, hey, here's $100,000 because I know you're on the take. Lose games, but lose. And then next we'll get a draft pick who's favorable. Then we can try to win next year.
Right.
And Flores refused to do that. So there's a major issue there, because you have fans of the Miami Dolphins who are paying hard-earned money and a lot of money to go to the game, to park at the game, the concessions, all of the bells and whistles that come with going to an NFL game. It's a very expensive experience. They are paying to see the Dolphins win. They're not paying to see the Dolphins lose. So this is a major accusation.
Yeah, we're talking to Boston Globe reporter, sports reporter Gary Washburn. Gary, has anybody ever alleged in the past that games are being thrown? I know in the betting world, that's the kind of thing that in the legal betting world gets you thrown in prison, and in the illegal betting world gets you killed. number one. And number two, is there a pattern where most often if they're going to try to throw games, they're going to ask black coaches to do it? Because they're just, presumably, I'm guessing these white owners are just basically thinking, oh yeah, these black coaches, their careers are disposable. Is that, am I putting too much evil intent into this?
Yeah, well, Tom, I don't think that it's only a black coach thing. There have been other coaches, white coaches, who have been asked or know that they're supposed to lose games, but this happens in professional sports. The Philadelphia 76ers for years lost games on purpose to get better players, and they ended up getting superstar center Joel Embiid and another player, an all-star, Ben Simmons, because they basically were absolutely terrible for 2 or 3 years. And so this is something that's been happened a lot more over the recent years, where teams just make it clear, listen, we're rebuilding. It doesn't benefit us to be average and to not get a better player. We'd rather be terrible for 1 year or for 2 years and get good players. I think what Flores is saying is that, one, he was asked to throw games by his owner, and two, fired by the same owner for not winning enough. So the fix might be in there. And then I think if the Houston Texans hired David Culley, who was 65 years old at the time, for his first NFL job, to lead a franchise whose quarterback is facing sexual assault allegations, and so their best player was not available to play. They put together a bunch of, journeymen and less caliber players. They went 4-13, and they fired him after 1 year. So he was basically set up to fail. And that's what I think black coaches are saying. We're being put in situations where we're either designed to lose, instructed to lose, or the fix is in, and then we get fired, and then here comes white coach to save the day. And I think Flores is like, listen, I was asked to lose, and then I get fired 2 years later for not winning enough. There's a problem here. And I do think that these are some legitimate accusations. There's coaches who are saying, one coach, Hugh Jackson of the Cleveland Browns, saying, hey, I was asked to lose games also. Okay, Now, I don't know if that's a race thing or an incompetence thing or an owner who's trying to sacrifice now for the future and who wants to make money long term and is willing to lose money and lose games short term. That's a greed thing as opposed to a racial thing, but it's still a preposterous accusation.
Gary, is it a criminal thing?
It's a reason that, if it's proven true, it's a reason that an owner could lose his team or be forced to sell. Like, I don't know if I don't know. It might be
all
difficult
within the
to
league,
prove this, because you don't have, if you don't have anything in writing, if you don't have anything like, a payment made. Now, the coach said he denied, he did not accept the offer. So it's one man's word against the other. So, yeah, if this was proven correct, this is a situation where, the owner could lose his team. Yeah. Because the goal, regardless of what you are trying to do inside, on the outside should be you're trying to win games, especially in the NFL that makes so much money, in a league that is so followed by fantasy people and the people you mentioned in Las Vegas, the betting people. I'm sure the betting people would have something to say about teams intentionally trying to lose. They'd like to know that information before they get bet on these games.
You think? We're going to hit a break in just a second here, Gary, but I'm looking at Brian Flores' career, and thinking of Colin Kaepernick. He took a knee to, as we all know, and he never played football again. I mean, that killed his career, and he was one of the best football players out there. Does Brian Flores have a future? And what does this say to future, whistleblowers or people speaking out?
Well, Tom, this is why probably many coaches haven't spoken out before, because they know that they could potentially sacrifice their career. Brian Flores may never coach in the NFL again. He might. It's going to take a team to hire him. But he is suing the NFL, which has the 32 teams. So he's suing the entity for which he wants to work. Okay, that's a very difficult and touchy situation.
Right.
So does the NFL say, do not touch this guy? Do they make a couple of phone calls to the teams that might be, because there's 5 jobs remaining that are open. Flores is candidates for 2 in Houston and in New Orleans. Does the NFL call Houston and New Orleans and say, listen, do not hire this man privately? Or do they say, okay, and then Flores takes over and the team looks great because they took a chance and they hired someone who was making such a bold stance? It's a delicate situation, and I think Flores realizes that his career in coaching in the NFL could be over. He might coach in college, maybe he'll coach high school or his son's Pop Warner team or something, but it could be, considering he has filed a lawsuit against the NFL and 3 of its members, that this could be, he might have coached his last game.
Yeah. We just have 25 seconds here, Gary, but to what extent do you think that this is going to produce some changes in the NFL and broadly, more broadly in our entire society? It seems to me like this is a really big deal.
It is a big deal. I don't think the NFL will change it. The NFL denied everything. They sent a statement out that night and denied it. So I don't think the NFL, people are not going to not watch the Super Bowl because of this. People are not going to want to have a fantasy team or bet on. People are not going to boycott the NFL because of this. Right. The NFL is a train that's going to keep going. It's an unstoppable movement, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Football.
They're not encouraged to change at all. So I don't think this will encourage them to change.
Gary Washburn, the great sports reporter for the Boston Globe, bostonglobe.com, G Washburn Globe on Twitter. Gary, thanks a lot for dropping by. I really appreciate the information.